You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty Podcast.
It is September 18th, 2023, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations that are fighting for liberty across the country and in your region. Today is a little bit of a special show. It's just going to be us knuckleheads sort of kicking around some of the issues that have been piling up, and we just haven't had time to address since we've been interviewing so many people. So today, some of the topics we're going to go through, we're going to talk a little bit about the phenomenon of the Oliver Anthony and, how his songs have sort of skyrocketed to the top of the billboards and sort of what that means about the culture. We're also going to talk about the weaponization of government and, kind of some of the discrepancies that have gone on in both pursuit of, I guess, prosecutions and also sentencing as well. And then we're going to talk a little bit more locally about California passing a bill that is, forcing parents to affirm their kids' gender identities, which is kind of a thought policing type of thing almost, you'd think. And then finally, we'll just kind of wrap up with our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we talk about Biden being sort of ushered off of the stage by his own staff. So these are just some of the crazy things that have been going on. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper box today, we have our Screaming Eagle of Freedom, Tim Everett, who is joining us from his, it looks like his kitchen in the background. Maybe he's working up a recipe for liberty there. And in our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. Okay, so let's kick right off with Oliver Anthony. James, can you share the screen real quick? I just wanted to show people so they kind of realize who this guy is. So he just seemed to come out of nowhere, seeming the hills of Virginia, I guess. So somewhere in that region anyways. And, just a guy playing on his guitar, singing songs about, sort of what he thinks the state of the world is. And boy, I tell you, it just took off. And his stuff made it to #1 on the Billboard. And when he made it to #1 on the Billboard, he also pushed off a guy named Jason Aldean, who had a song also that was kind of distressed about what was going on in the country, but it was called Try That in a Small Town, which was, I guess, distressing about some of the stuff he saw going on in some of the big cities. So anyways, let's jump right into a quick clip of that. Maybe James, our invisible hand, maybe you could bring up a clip of Oliver Anthony singing his song, just so people know what we're talking about.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men.
So that's the Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony. And he had some other songs too, but that one really gets to the heart. The Rich Men North of Richmond are the politicians and lobbyists in D.C. That's who he's talking about. So the whole song is just a rail against them and sort of policy. And then, of course, the song he bumped off was Jason Aldean's that I just mentioned, Try That in a Small Town. And can we bring that up as well too, James?
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think it's tough? Well, try that in a small town, see how far.
So you can see it was sort of both of these seem to call out to more current anti-establishment, which is kind of, it seems to be a push against the left. So anyway, it's kind of a phenomenon here, and it's sort of happening in country music, which is usually just sort of focused on, people's bad love lives, losing their jobs, and their dogs dying. Yes, but now we're really focusing on some kind of interesting and timely political topics. So, have you guys had a chance to listen to any of those yet? And really, what are your thoughts?
Well, since I'm at the top, I'll start.
Yeah, okay, Tim, that sounds good.
Here I am, up at the top. So, yeah, I think this is indicative of what happens when a federal government is just so huge that it's in everybody's face. And, so in a environment where the left is has a good control over it. And plus, all the stuff that happened in 1913, the income tax and the Federal Reserve now has gotten, at this point, has just so convoluted everything that, and the government is so huge. It's in so many places in our lives and interfering in our lives. So eventually you're going to rebel and be sick to death of it. So, and I saw I flashed out of there for a moment, but anyway, what do you think, Leon?
Well, I think, especially the Oliver Anthony song. I think Jason Aldean also is doing the same thing. They are really tapping into a larger discontentment that is going on within our society, where the government have essentially disconnected itself from its citizens. It's becoming like more of a master-servant relationship, where the government itself is no longer servants of the people. They're now expecting us to be their servants. And what is happening, there's a discontentment within society that these two singers are really tapping into. Because we're going to talk about the next topic about these things about the weaponization of government. That is connected to this. I think it's very connected to this. But this discontentment, I am telling you, is part of a cultural war that is going on within the United States of America. Because too much of the government's actions are directed at citizens, and in some cases, innocent people. I think Donald Trump is a very good example of this, where the government is directing things at people who are innocent. Now, sure, I am all for let us go through the judicial process. I'm all for that. But if you look more closely at what's going on with the Donald Trump,
Leon, let's not dive too far into that right now, because I did want to stick with this before we jump into that one. Otherwise,
okay, that's fine. That's fine. But the whole idea is there's too much discontentment going on in our society. People are beginning to rebel against the government and its actions. And like Tim said, they're too much in our face. Our freedoms and our liberties are being infringed upon, and no one seems to care about it. And the even bigger problem with this is that the media is out there promoting this thing. They're promoting it. And they claim, they're just reporting the news. They're being very objective, and they are not. They are not. They're in bed with the government, and they're destroying our liberties and our freedoms.
So, Leon, you think that, I guess the truth is finding a way through music, since it's not finding a way through the media? Is that a better way to?
That would be a very fine way of putting it. Yes, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I will even give a little bit of leeway to conservative news, where they have been highlighting this discontentment for quite a while. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you conservatives are the beacons of liberty and freedom. I'm not going to say that, but they are more so certainly than the left. So yes, I will totally agree that we are now finding new ways to express our discontentment through music in this case, rather than through the mainstream media. Certainly, I would agree with that.
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting about this whole thing too, and not so much with Jason Aldean's song, but with the Oliver Anthony song, is that I guess conservatives, because they've seen some of this pushback against what's happening in government, they just assume that it's that the music is sort of aligned with them. But
Yeah.
what Oliver Anthony kind of recently came out and said, no, this is a little bit more of the common man thing. It's not so much about being on one side or the other, because one of the things that happened recently was, and James, maybe you could bring up the visual for this, so Oliver Anthony's song was taking off so much that the Republicans, when they did their first debate, they actually played his song there, sort of as a, top of the theme, I guess, the Richmond, north of Richmond. And it actually kind of dismayed Oliver Anthony after he saw it, because he said, I was talking about those guys in the song. And I don't know if he only meant the Republicans. I think he kind of meant all of those guys in Washington. But just the fact that he thought it was kind of odd that the guys he was literally railing against were using his song as sort of an anthem for their event. So I thought that was kind of an interesting insight. And I think this kind of goes a little bit to the Trump stuff too, which is Trump is not so much a conservative. He's more of a populist, and who happens to be a little more on the conservative side. And I think that's kind of what these messages are getting to in the song, is they're getting to a lot of populist frustration with what they see Washington, D.C. doing and not addressing any of their concerns. But, it just, yeah. So anyways, that's
without going too deep into the weaponization of Donald Trump issues, but the point is, though, when you listen to Trump more populist message, and he's really kind of talking to middle America, because some of the greatest nuttiness that is going on in our society is happening along the coast, right? In New York and California those are the dominant two coastal states. And you're seeing some of the craziness that's going on in these places. But middle America, which has kind of become that have begun to typify the common man, shall we say, these are the people who are suffering from the expansion, mostly suffering from the expansion of government, the destruction of freedoms, and the destruction of liberties. So conservatives, Trump, more populist message, is speaking to those people. And when Oliver Anthony came along and his song came out, he was kind of highlighting some of the problems in middle America, quote unquote, middle America. So the conservatives kind of align themselves with that, because of, this has been kind of their message for quite a while now, only to have Oliver Anthony say, well, I really wasn't aligning myself with the Republicans on this message, or the conservatives on this. I was just talking to the common man, shall we say. The common man is who the Republicans are now targeting in their message to win their elections and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it points out that there's issues with the loss of freedom from both sides.
Yes.
So and the cost of government is like the Republicans don't vote for these spending bills in one way or another. Maybe they don't want to spend quite as much, or they want to spend more on this and less on that than the Democrats, but at least but they're part of it. They're part of the problem of this. The dollar ain't starts with an S, ends with a T, rhymes with hit or fit, the dollar ain't that anymore because of the Federal Reserve back in 1913. Hey, and the income tax too. We're taxed to death. So thank you, gentlemen, at what was the place they went to when they did all this in secret? Not Martha's Vineyard, but up there on the coast, where they got together in 1913 and created the Federal Reserve and the income tax. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember there was there's some book or something about the monster of Jekyll Island or something like that.
That's it, Jekyll Island. Yeah, the monster or whatever from Jekyll Island. Yeah, so hello, here we are. It's not like we didn't realize when you create total fiat currency. Of course, they didn't do it then. It was still tied with the because in case anybody's going, well, yeah, but it was still tied to gold, and that was fine, and it was.
The funny thing is, though, Tim, like you're getting into all of these details that libertarians kind of recognize as this is what's happened, but guys like Oliver Anthony and what he's singing to, they don't realize any of that history. They just know some reason the dollar ain't shit, meaning inflation is eating it away, and it's taxed to no end. It's sort of like, it's just their frustration. They're seeing it from the top, and you're seeing all of the structure underneath that a lot of these guys are missing.
This is. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead. Tim, go ahead.
No, I was done. I just, that's my job, I guess, is to point out, hey, this is where it comes from. You guys want to get rid of this and go back to real money, go back to gold, without tearing apart the ties, gold to the value of your currency, and you're going to be do something about the income tax. I don't know if that's ever. None of that's ever going to happen. I mean, they've got the gold. The goose is laying those golden eggs, and the goose is the Federal Reserve and the income tax. So they're never going to get rid of the goose that laid the golden egg.
They're fool's gold eggs. That's the problem, right? There's nothing inside of those things.
Nothing inside of it.
The goose for them, the golden egg is spending. They don't care what the money's worth because they can create more. So they don't care. But they want their spending program so that they can keep getting elected, and everybody's got their hands out. And, so... And today, more and more, the hands come from the top. Where anyway, I'm rambling. There we are.
Yeah.
But the whole point about these two songs is, I think they have become, quote unquote, the voice of the common man. That's what's happening there. That people are looking at what's happening in our society and essentially rebelling. And these two songs have become like the voice of the common man. I mean, I think Oliver Anthony's song have already gotten 41 million views or some ungodly number.
No,
like that.
it's on YouTube, and it depends upon where you're seeing it. But I think it's his channel on YouTube. There's almost 70 million views already on his. Yeah.
Whatever the number is, it's huge. Okay, I don't dispute what you have said, Jason.
And by the way, this is just over about a month, right? So this is not like some of these things you see up there. Top songs that have maybe 20 million hits. They've been up there maybe for a couple years.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
People just tuning in for free on YouTube. So
yes, so which obviously speaks to the frustration of people. Right, the frustration of the citizens of what they're seeing going on in society. Too much government infringing upon our rights, too much taxation, taking away our hard-earned income, too much destruction of liberty and freedom, and on it goes. So the voice of the common man are being represented by these songs. This is what's going on.
Well, I do think it represents a sliver of hope for libertarians, the idea that a song would skyrocket to the top of the charts that rails against taxes. Taxes and inflation. That's a hell of a thing.
It gives my cynical mind one tiny little sliver of hope.
Yeah. Why not? So I'm gonna have to crush your hope with the next topic. The weaponization of government. We've, I tell you, we've seen this, I guess, nonstop since it feels like since Trump came into office. The Justice Department sort of weaponized, in a lot of cases, his own Justice Department sort of going off against it. It feels like it's almost like the it's like some kind of Warner Brothers cartoon, right? Where it's his Justice Department was blowing up in his face, and somehow though he's almost like the Roadrunner, where they can't quite seem to get him too. I don't know. There's some kind of a weird mix there, because you feel like the Democrats are like, sending away for all these Acme kits always on how are we going to get Trump this week, and somehow, it's always exploding in their face, on that aspect of it. But anyways, maybe we could bring up the visual real quick here. So this is
here's Trump. Trump goes, blah, 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 pew, out of there.
Yeah, he says a lot of stuff that just sort of, it's hard to, that's one of the biggest problems I have as a sort of a libertarian with Trump is it's like trying to nail what he says. It's like the words he says, it's like they're going to nail Jello to a wall to try and be able to pin it down exactly what he meant. Right? And I think that's part of the problem, right? Is a lot of his supporters then will sort of interpret what he said to be what they wanted it to mean. But anyways, let's get to the focus. I know, Leon, you sort of chose this topic, so let's I guess I'll kick this to you pretty fast. But essentially, not only have we had, I guess, them continuously going after Trump the whole time he was in office with impeachments, investigations, special counsels. But since he exited office too, I mean, they've made a lot of attempts to try and get him on sort of crazy trumped up charges. And we'll talk about a little bit of that later too. But now it's being focused a little bit back toward Biden. It took forever for it to happen because the stuff Biden's being accused of literally was happening back when he was vice president. And the media is finally becoming a little concerned when he looks so demented up there that, they're a little concerned that they may lose the White House, I think. But James, maybe you could bring back that visual. So Trump casts a shadow over Biden impeachment inquiry. And so McCarthy just brought up charges. Not charges. No. He started an impeachment investigation. And so they're
inquiry.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's to start digging up some of the stuff. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for the House, we wouldn't have some of the stuff that we have on Biden already. I mean, they dug up the 22 shell companies and other things like that his family has been able to, for some reason, get money from places like China without delivering anything of real value, apparently. But anyways, Leon, did you want to sort of kick this one off? Because I think you're a little more attuned to it than I am.
Jason, this whole thing, this thing that we are seeing here, this weaponization of government is really a problem in our society. But it's part of a larger problem. It's not that I will talk about Donald Trump and think that, well, I am here to defend Donald Trump. No, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. I am here to defend the rights of citizens of the United States of America. And what is happening here is we are seeing the tolerance of violence in the name of social justice and the selective prosecution of people that is on the wrong side of the political spectrum, quote unquote, when I say wrong. So I go back to the Donald Trump issue that I raised earlier. Since Donald Trump declared himself that he wanted to be president, these people, the FBI, the Justice Department, have been going after this man. Why? For what purpose? They impeached him twice. It never happened before in our history. But here it is. They impeached Donald Trump twice. Even look at this thing about the January 6th, which of course they say, well, these people came out of his rally, and as a result, he's responsible for what happened on January 6th. Well, think about this for a second. Trump is the head of the executive branch of government. Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security of the Capitol, and she was in charge of security of the Capitol on that day. But yet there's not a single prosecutor, not a single person is going after Nancy Pelosi for what happened on January 6th. But
well, yet, Leon, that's kind of indicative of the fact that when she started her January 6th committee to look into this, of course, she got to choose who all the investigators were.
Exactly. She even chose the Republicans who ended up on the committee. Look at it. So what is going on here is that we're seeing these people doing this thing where they're going after people who are unfavorable, shall we say. Donald Trump is in the unfavorable category. And people who they think, well, they are the good side of the spectrum, whatever that means, they don't go after them. So there's this selective prosecution. Look at during the George Floyd riots. These people were burning down our cities all over. And yet we had the media telling us, oh, they were mostly peaceful. And what have happened to these people? How many people have gotten persecuted as a result of that? How many? Not many. But look at what happened to the people who stormed the Capitol. Look at what happened to them. Some of them have been in prison since they were arrested, and they're still there and awaiting trial. Some of them have been sentenced. Well, we'll talk about one case of that later on. But we are seeing this selective prosecution of people while they're tolerating all sorts of misdeeds as a result of social justice. This is how countries are destroyed, and this is what we are talking. We spoke about this in the last block. The discontentment in our society is rising to a level that is becoming dangerous, and we got to be very careful where we go from here. We really got to be careful.
I doubt we will. But, I heard weaponization, and I thought we'd be talking about some kind of weapons. But what you guys are referring to is the use of the Justice Department as a weapon against selected people. So I'm kind of disappointed in that. But
well,
right.
Tim, usually when the government is talking about weaponization, it's about taking away your rights to weapons and giving themselves more rights. Police who look like they're paramilitary groups, while they're taking away your own guns, right?
Right, which is apropos historically.
Yeah. So before you know it, the police and the military will be one in that type of society.
The old standing army thing, boy, the founders were right about that.
Yeah. But this whole idea of what we've seen, when we literally saw two impeachment attempts at Trump, and both of them, didn't wind up, I guess, with the desired result of Democrats, which was to, seeing Trump frog marched off. But now he's being he's being indicted. Essentially, it looks like just to keep him out of the election this time. And so, James, maybe you could bring up the visual on this. This was something, Leon, also too, that you wanted to discuss. But it's all of these cases that they're bringing up against Trump all across the board in different states by prosecutors who've literally, when they were running for office, said, vote for me and I'll get Trump.
Exactly.
This is the kind of weaponization that we had. I mean, the whole point of justice is it's supposed to be.
You're up against 28 minutes, Jason. 28 minutes.
Oh, 28 minutes. Thank you. And for our audience on public access, you'll have to catch the rest of this discussion online. We can also find many more discussions of us talking to a lot of people fighting for liberty across the country and in your region. And you can check that out at Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Rumble under Knuckleheads of Liberty. So anyways, let's keep going with the show now. But this is, absolutely, nuts. Some of the stuff we're seeing here where these, prosecutors are nakedly saying they're going after Trump. So I can't make it more clear that isn't the weaponization of our justice system, which is supposed to be blind. So what are some of your thoughts on some of these indictments?
And this is a real problem. Okay, Alvin Bragg, just like you said, Alvin Bragg was, I'm going to go after Trump if I'm elected. He was elected. What did he do? He came up with these novel legal theories that he's going to use to hand out these 39 indictments against Trump. This woman in Georgia, in Fulton County, Georgia, now she's going after Trump on this RICO charges for election interference. You go back and look how many times the Democrats have challenged election results. You could argue about whether what they did was legal or illegal if you want to, or that kind of stuff. Which Democrat have ever been prosecuted for challenging the results of an election? Which Democrat? I do not know of any. I can't find any. The most celebrated case we have in America of somebody challenging the election results was Al Gore in 2020 in Florida. He wanted 4 counties to determine the entire election results. Not a single person ever spoke about prosecuting him about election interference. Nobody did. But yet we've seen it here in Georgia. Then you look this guy with the classified documents information. He lists out a whole indictment against Donald Trump. Not a single statement about the Presidential Record Act, which gives Trump some authority, and not say all authority, but some authority to have those documents. Not a single thing about it. Past presidents have had classified information before. Where's the prosecution of them? This is nothing. You're totally right. This is nothing but the prosecution of an American citizen through the weaponization of the Justice Department, the FBI. This is what they're doing. These are our liberties at stake. This is a dangerous trend that we are seeing here in the United States.
Yeah.
So Leon,
that's okay. Go ahead.
Ask Leon if he thought that there was a possibility that this thing would be refocused against the Democrats by some entities in the future doing the same exact thing, but only from the Republicans. Do you think there's a chance of that, or do you think that the media and everything is so anti or so pro-Democratic Party that it's never going to happen? What do you think?
Well, no, I think when the Republicans get in power, they're gonna go after the Democrats. Now, some people will say, well, since I am a man mostly of the right, I would tend to think it would be more legitimate, but I don't want to say that because I have my biases, obviously. But look at what's happening even right now. Even look at what's happening right now. When the Republicans took over the House of Representatives, and the first thing they started to do was to investigate Joe Biden. Now, to me, based upon the results we've seen so far from the investigation, it looked like a legitimate investigation. But that might be my biases at work. But the point is, though, to get back to your point, Tim, it's obvious that's what's going to happen. That when the Republicans come to power, they're going to go after the Democrats, and when the Democrats get back in power, they're going to go after when the Democrats they go after the Republicans. This is the stuff of banana republics. This is the stuff of our countries are destroyed, and it's going to. And if this trend continues, we in deep, deep, deep trouble. Seriously.
Well, yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility, a distinct possibility that, they've opened up a can of worms. Those worms are going to start crawling out all over everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the most ridiculous stuff is the idea that, you look at that one you mentioned Alvin Bragg in New York, and I mean, he's going after him for supposedly paying hush money, which essentially is paying somebody not to talk about an experience with them. It's not really illegal. I mean, if me and Tim, let's say we were out drinking and I, passed out because I drank too much. I said, "Oh, Tim, you can't tell anybody that I couldn't hold my liquor," and I bought him a few drinks, so that he wouldn't, because he promised not to tell anybody. How is that illegal? I mean, he's free to not tell anybody. And if I give him a little money too, to make it sweeter for him, I don't see it. It's hard to imagine how this could even be a crime. And yet,
while that's Stormy Daniels, right?
Yes. I think it's So there's that. But, at the same time, they're trying to get him for that. Joe Biden's family has 22 shell companies and they're getting money from all these places around the world. I mean, in Ukraine, the Burisma company that was employing Hunter Biden, the FBI has files where the executive officer of that company said that Hunter Biden was dumber than a dog. He's dumber than his dog. but they're keeping him on staff for the things that, for the influence essentially that his family can bring. And of course, who was in control of the U.S. policy over that country at the time? It was the Vice President, Joe Biden. He'd been given that responsibility by Obama. And he's even on record bragging that he got a prosecutor fired who was looking into the company that his son worked for over there. So, I mean, this is just, it just blows my mind, this stuff that was essentially at the heart of the first Trump impeachment scandal. And Democrats saying there's no real evidence. There's no real evidence. And yet here they're going after Trump for hush money so that they can keep him from running in an election. I mean, this is insanity. The double standard here that's going on, and the complete weaponization of government.
Yes, if you remember the first impeachment, Trump was impeached over a telephone call that he made to the Ukrainian president, and he was asking for investigations of Joe Biden. And I guess
specifically he was asking to get the prosecutor reinstated that was investigating Joe Biden's company or Burisma, I mean, this is literally the heart of the whole Trump impeachment thing. And Democrats act like it wasn't happening. Joe Biden was literally doing what they were trying to impeach Trump for.
Exactly. And we have Joe Biden. What is worse about all of this, and you just mentioned this, Jason, what is worse about this? We have Joe Biden telling us that he used taxpayer dollars to get a prosecutor in Ukraine fired. Now, why would the vice president of the United States need to go so deeply into the politics of another country? Why?
Yeah, to be concerned about specific prosecutors and their internal investigations in another country is just, and of course, that's what Democrats claimed they were appalled about with Trump, is that he was trying to interfere with the inner workings of the country by withholding aid, which is exactly what Biden was threatening the president of Ukraine with when he said, fire that prosecutor. So it's beyond the pale that we're sitting here like the emperor has no clothes. We're literally watching the Democrats absolutely use government as a weapon. And, mainstream media is just like, there's nothing to see here, which is amazing. I mean, it's like, they've become, the Ministry of Truth.
Of course. But, we should not brush over this issue about the mainstream media. I mean, when the news media get in bed with the government, we are really talking about fascism here. That's what we're talking about. Because the mainstream media have now closed their eyes to anything that the Democrats want to do. Now, right now, they're on this big kick. Well, it looked like Joe Biden shouldn't be running again. Oh, my goodness gracious, maybe he's too old. Oh, my goodness, he's in cognitive decline. They just started that here in the last month or so. The only reason the mainstream media have now started that is because they're afraid of losing power. That's all it is. It have nothing to do with, they are these objective guardians of the truth. It is not. It's only because they are now afraid it looks like Biden may end up losing the election because of his cognitive decline, because, the man is a mess. Let's face it. He's a mess. And now they're starting to talk about it, but it's only because of the potential loss of power. That's all it is. So these people, this trend or this entanglement of the mainstream media and the government is another one of the dangers that we face. These are the same people who was telling us during the George Floyd riots, it was mostly peaceful. And you remember that ridiculous thing where in the back of the reporter, buildings burning down and all kind of stuff and things like that, and they're talking about it was mostly peaceful.
Jane, maybe I could get a visual for this too. Go ahead. Yeah,
go ahead.
And here is what Leon was just talking about. CNN fiery but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. So not talking about any of the deaths or destruction. It's just focused on the police shooting.
Exactly.
And these are mostly peaceful. It doesn't look peaceful to me, but that's kind of the Ministry of Truth's interpretation of events. But just to cement one more point on this whole weaponization of government, one of the issues too that is it just came up a few months ago is that in order to investigate Biden, they've been having to go after his son Hunter Biden because his son has left himself exposed with the laptop that also the media got disappeared before the election, saying it was all Russia, 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 right? When everybody now acknowledges that, yeah, the laptop is real and all that sordid stuff on the laptop with Hunter Biden is real.
Yes. Yes.
The using his essentially trying to declare write-offs for things like prostitutes, parties, and other stuff like that. But as they go through some of this, they had several charges that were hard for them to make disappear. One of them was a gun charge where he had lied on a form that he wasn't under the influence, which the laptop showed at the time he was under the influence. It shows him doing, crack cocaine and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I don't know why anybody would keep evidence like that on their own laptop of them committing crimes, but I guess that's the type of person Hunter Biden was. But
he's dumber than a dog, remember? Go ahead.
That's right. Yeah. We got rid. The CEO of Burisma had him pegged. He knew him better than we did. But
the understanding is that they're going to continue on with that gun charge, though, against him.
Yeah. Well, but this is a crazy thing, and so they had let these things sit. Essentially, the non-payment of taxes on all of this questionable money, where it was coming from and everything else, through all these shell companies and everything else. Well, there was all of this, tax issues that the IRS was starting to get interested in and come after him for. And then also the gun charge as well, that popped up from, it must have been some journalist other than a mainstream reporter who found that out, because they don't seem to be interested in anything. But when the Justice Department was essentially was going to give him a plea deal where they buried within the gun charges an agreement that they wouldn't prosecute or they wouldn't investigate him for anything else. They would end all these prosecutions. They'd give him immunity from everything else. Well, the whole point of looking into him on this stuff is to try and see if his father was getting some of this money and, was using his influence and selling his influence overseas. I mean, that's the real issue here, not so much, what the heck Hunter was doing. And so they tried to bury that. The Justice Department literally tried to bury that. And a judge saw that and she said, this doesn't make sense. I've never seen anything like this before. And she literally put it right on the prosecutor. Is this literally what you're trying to do? Because it was literally hidden within a gun charge that they couldn't investigate him on all of this other stuff. And they said, so they had to fess up and say, yes, actually they said, they said, we intend to still investigate. And suddenly Biden's attorneys then said, okay, well, no deal. And they tore the thing up. So this is just absolutely nuts, some of the stuff that they're trying to bury in here to cut off the trails of investigation to Joe Biden. And of course, the whistleblowers who tested in front of Congress have also said, too, that they wanted to pursue this. This would have been normal, strategy to say, hey, there's this money that's supposed to be heading toward the big guy. We need to see who the big guy is. And they were essentially told, no, we're not doing that. So, I mean, this is insanity. I mean, this is literally where we're going. This is much bigger than Watergate as far as the corruption of government. So,
of course it is. But people in the media, the mainstream media, they're trying to use this indictment of Hunter Biden on the gun charges, and they're saying, oh, look at this guy, the prosecutor, some guy named Wise or something like that. He was a Trump appointee, and Joe Biden allowed him to stay in place. And now this Trump appointee have indicted Hunter on a gun charge. This shows that how justice is fair and equal and blah, blah, blah. You know what is special about this gun charge? The only thing that is special about it is the one thing that they could indict Hunter for, and it is not connected to Joe Biden in any way.
Yeah.
And that is why he's indicted. Don't be fooled by this gun charge business here. Don't be fooled. This indictment, don't be fooled by it. It is not connected to Joe Biden. That's why this prosecutor have brought it against Hunter, because the plea deal, the sweetheart plea deal, fell apart. And since the plea deal fell apart, no, if you even think about it, they have had this case for 5 years or something like that. Okay, they have had this case. Okay, and the first time they tried to do anything was this sweetheart deal. And now they come about a month later or 2 months later, they have these indictments. So tell me something. What changed? What changed? The case, the facts of the case did not change. Okay? The people involved in it did not change. We didn't have any new evidence or nothing like that. None of that changed. But all of a sudden, you could indict him now. Why? Because of what was going on in the Justice Department. They're trying to cover up this whole thing for Hunter, because Hunter's tax investigation, the investigation of him on those tax charges and everything, it leads directly to his father. Everybody knows that, and they've been sitting on this thing for all these years. They already allow the some of the earlier years, like in 2015, I think, or something like that.
I think it was 2014.
Yes, yeah. They allow those things to become bad by statute because
well, they let the clock expire on some of these, essentially giving Hunter Biden a gift of millions of dollars that the IRS would have otherwise come after him for, but they let the statute of limitations expire on that, which is insane because they've just been sitting on it. They haven't been doing anything with this, which, why don't any of the rest of us get that kind of a sweetheart deal where, we're somehow not reporting and the government's aware of it, but they're not going to prosecute us until after it's expired. And sorry, I guess you get to keep the money.
Yeah, you get to keep the money. It's no big deal.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that he's been given a pass on in that.
I think it's millions. I think it's millions. But there's one little issue here that you guys may find it a little bit hilarious, but it is true. You notice that the left, they always love to tell us, especially when they're talking to black audiences, they always love to tell us about white privilege. They always love to tell us that. Oh, everything that any perceived advantage, quote unquote advantage that whites get in America, it's something about has to do with white privilege. You notice white privilege is never mentioned here. We spoke about this before. There was this black guy who did essentially similar thing to what Hunter did, end up in prison for about 3 years. And now look at Hunter now. They're fighting, they're doing everything they can to let him out. They let him go. They gave him a diversion thing. Well, that fell apart. Now they come with this indictment, which there are some problems in that indictment too, that we still may let him go. But the mainstream media and these leftist jackasses, pardon me my language, nobody's talking about white privilege. Where is it? Where are the cries about white privilege? Oh my God. Where is it?
You mean Biden privilege.
Well, call it what you want, but Biden is white and so is his son. Where is the cries of white privilege? I really want to know.
Well, because I don't get a pass on illegally earned income from Ukraine. I don't get one. And my father's not the president. But apparently Hunter gets one because the Justice Department, correct me if I'm wrong, let the statute of limitations run out on the tax charge. Yeah, so that's not white privilege, that's Biden privilege, correct?
Tim, in the logical sense, you're correct. But I am saying the media will use everything they can whenever it's to their advantage to talk about racism in America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which by the way, we just saw with where they've been calling the essentially red border state governors racists for their immigration policy. But
imagine
when
that.
Eric Adams says this immigration is going to destroy our city, then suddenly it's like, oh well, no, he's just he's got some legit concerns maybe. And of course, he's just getting a sliver of what those states are getting. But I did want to keep us on track with respect to the weaponization of government. We've talked a little bit about the investigation side, but you touched upon this earlier, Leon, with the or the punishment side of things. And with the January 6th, what we saw was essentially the government, for something that was very similar. Well, Jane, maybe I can get the visual on this real quick, because let's go back to 2020 and what we were seeing here, where essentially people were riding through the streets. I think there were 18 deaths or murders associated with this whole movement throughout the country. Lots of downtown areas burned down, just all kinds of violence. We saw a video of people just being beaten in the street by mobs. It's just absolutely horrific while the police stood down. And a lot of times people were just literally in these no bail areas. They picked the people up and they put them right back out on the street, people who were doing these actions. So, some of this stuff was absolutely horrifying. But on January 6th, when people showed up to, I guess, stop the steal, which was, what Trump was trying to push on this whole, I guess, protest of the election results for the 2020 election results. And it clearly it turned into a riot and got out of hand, even though he had been saying, hey, let's, he did actually say, there's video of him saying, hey, let's keep it peaceful. Yes. But now some guys who literally weren't even there, this Proud Boy leader, Enrique Tarrio, he literally is being thrown in jail for they're going to put him in jail. A sentence just came down this last week that said but 22 years in jail they want to put him in. And you literally saw people who were trying to burn down buildings, in government buildings in some of these cases, and either getting a pass or a very light sentence. Here was a specific story of the some lawyers who were actually on the, protesting against the police and protesting for George Floyd. They literally threw Molotov cocktails on a police car.
Yes.
So these are essentially, incendiary bombs that they threw on a police car. And they were given essentially about a 1-year sentence. So this is somebody who literally was committing violence on property and people. And even if there was wound up being nobody in that police car, the whole point is you set off an incendiary bomb, you don't know where that could go and what it could, set on fire and who could get harmed. So it's just absolutely outrageous, that these people were doing stuff like this. But because they're on the right side, and I guess we got to understand their rage, because they're on the right political side, they're going to get a very light sentence, something like a year. Whereas, somebody, like this Proud Boys leader who wasn't even there is literally, going to be charged with some kind of conspiracy, for, it sounds like, for free speech. And some of the other things too, like there's been several of these, Capitol rioters that day, some of them who literally just walked in the door carrying a Trump flag. I think that was the case with this guy. And I don't have, I guess his name was Matthew Pima. And all he did was carry in apparently a Trump flag into the Capitol, that day. And he wound up, essentially they didn't actually give him the charge, they had, or the sentence, but they had given them the conviction and they were going to sentence him. And so he wound up committing suicide. And there's been several people who were Capitol rioters that day, because it's literally been like an inquisition going after these people who, it's like, how on earth are they much different than all of these protesters that went for the whole summer of 2020, with, allowed to essentially topple statues and burn down the streets and everything else. And yet these people are being singled out for something that was clearly speech. I mean, after all, these people didn't even show up with weapons, and they were trying to take over the government. It just, I mean, it doesn't even, and that's what they're being charged for, is insurrection.
Insurrection. Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, and oh, by the way, too, here's a story from The Guardian that says most of the charges against George Floyd protesters were dropped, an analysis shows. And it says that in New York, it was at least 90% of cases were dropped and dismissed, and 95% were dropped in other places like Philadelphia and Dallas, it says. So, I mean, this is the disparity of treatment people were getting for doing things that were clearly illegal in their protesting. They're, as CNN described it, a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. Right. And yet, getting much different treatment than those people who were rioting that day at the Capitol for clearly political reasons as well. So
just recently, Jason and Tim, just recently, a bunch of protesters, I think must have been about 12 of them or so, stormed the Capitol, quote unquote, and they took over Kevin McCarthy's office. He's the Speaker of the House. Okay, these people were stopping the legitimate function of government. Okay, where are the cries of insurrection? This happened about 2 weeks ago. Where are the cries of insurrection? That very same Capitol where all these January 6 people went in, they have been charged, convicted, some of them still in prison without trial as yet. Where is the charges of insurrection? Where are the charges of obstructing the legitimate function of government? Where is it? But this is what's going on. This is the dangerous thing that's going on. We are looking at people, and depending on what side of the political spectrum they're on, the Justice Department is deciding whether to prosecute or not. This is dangerous. Seriously.
Yeah. Well,
I'd almost use the H word, but it's against the vocabulary of the knucklehead.
Well, I tell you, and as you mentioned earlier, Leon, this is not just being done by essentially Democrats in government. This is being done at the behest of, with the cover of the media. And
Yes.
I want to bring you this clip too as well. And we played it on the show a long time ago in the past under our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But at the time, the media was cheering most of this on. They were while cities were burning, while people were being violently assaulted with no police there to protect them. The media was, literally saying, "Hey, who says these things can't be violent?" And let me bring you up to CNN, who we just saw that thing, fiery but mostly peaceful protesters. James, can you play the video clip? This is Chris Cuomo of CNN and his ideas about violent protesting.
Many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets: persistent and poisonous inequities and injustice. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
So, I mean, here you have mainstream media telling people that, hey, this doesn't really have to be peaceful. So I just,
so the answer to his question, show me, is the January 6th thing. There's the show me right there. All of a sudden for the January 6th people, they have to be peaceful and polite. And so there you are.
Apparently your cat is protesting that story as well.
but Cuomo should read the Constitution, because it says peaceably assemble is what it says in terms of protest. It says so right there.
I see. Yeah, that's another answer to the question.
Yes. So I don't know I don't know where this idiot got his law degree from. I don't know if he has one, but I don't know where he got it from. But at least I know he can read.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because when we talk about insurrections, there was actually something that was I guess equivalent to a riot at the White House, and that happened back in May of 2020. And James, can you bring up this visual as well on this? So this is something where there were a lot of protesters out there, and of course, these protesters were protesting Trump, not the they weren't protesting Biden. So it was all okay then. I mean, literally, they were trying to tear down statues. And there's even video in this clip of them attacking a reporter. And I'm not going to play the sound, but I'll just play the visual here. Here is a Fox reporter who's being chased by a crowd. And you can see they're throwing things at him. It looks like they're trying to hit him and kick him as he's moving. And, just all these people with masks, but these are, so there you can see people actually literally throwing, and here's somebody trying to grab something from, he's throwing stuff right there at the reporter. Okay, these are the peaceful protesters that, guys like Cuomo are cheering on, right? And saying, hey, this is all okay, right? These same people were also assaulting the police that were trying to guard the White House at the time. And they even, the Washington Post reported this. Protesters breached the temporary fences near White House complex, prompted Secret Service to move Trump to a secure bunker. Now, how is that much different than what happened on January 6th? Right. And yet none of these people are being charged with an insurrection. Clearly, these people were violently attacking the police there. They had broken through the fences. They hadn't broken through the compound, but it's once you breach those fences, it's pretty much the same principle at that point. So and it caused Trump to have to flee, which is exactly what happened to the Congress on January 6th. So but of course we don't hear anything about that from the mainstream media. We don't hear anything about this being an insurrection point. When it's their people, it's all just, and it's absolutely just fine and dandy. But when it's the other side, and this is one of the things that bugs me, being a libertarian, I mean, we never get our side in there, but we have to watch this double standard happening. And it just, we don't protest like this, and we're not the ones, protesting. We have the deck rigged against us every single election about being able to get people on the ballot. Yes. They rigged the system. Both parties rigged the system against us. And we're not the ones out there tearing and ripping everything apart. When, you'd say we have the biggest justification, and yet we're playing by the rules. And these sides, I think it's much more the left, because they set the stage for what happened on January 6th. But both sides are having problems playing by the rules, and they're rigging at the same time. They're rigging the deck against us. It just, it's just beyond the pale.
Unbelievable, quite frankly. But overall, honestly, is these tolerance of violence on the left for mostly, and this selective prosecution of people is a very dangerous trend that's going on in our society. And if we don't do something to stem this tide, we in some deep trouble. We really are. We really are.
Yeah. Well, we've gone pretty long on this, so I'm going to kick the short story we had on California and go right to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. So there was a press conference, and this kind of just shows you the state of the current guy who's in office. He is, something else. He can't seem to string together coherent thoughts, and I think his staff is starting to realize it. And so he was recently at a press conference in Hanoi, and in front of, this is international. It's not even in our own White House, and you've got people on an international stage there, and they're literally silencing him before he's done talking, which is just unbelievable. I mean, right? It's like, who's running the show here? But anyways, let's bring the video clip here. This is Joe Biden in Hanoi, and he's being essentially silenced by his own press secretary.
Yeah, we talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the Southern Hemisphere had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. You came up with
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
and they even had music to drown him out there at the end, like he's at the Academy Awards and he's been talking too long. I just, but he was literally right in the middle of a thought, and his press secretary, comes in over a speaker, and we're done here.
We're done here. And, not only we are done here, here's the music to make sure we are done.
Vote for Joe Biden in 2024. Joe Biden. Yeah, vote for that guy.
Vote for that guy. Yeah. It's the same as voting for nothing, but it's okay. Vote for that guy. But the point is, though, you always have to wonder. I have seen Joe Biden. I don't know if I think it happened. It happened in Vietnam also, where you will say, "Well, let me make sure that I call on the right people, and let me use this list." Or something like that, or I will get in trouble. So I always have to left to wonder. I've heard Joe Biden say that at least 2 or 3 times. Who is running the government? Who is Joe Biden going to get in trouble with? He's supposed to be president of the United States. Who is running the government if not him? Because he says he's going to get in trouble. So who is going to get in trouble with? I mean, this is unbelievable. Look, in this particular case, we have the press secretary, who is somebody who's supposed to be working for him, driving the man off the stage, and he's in an international event.
Yeah.
I mean, who's running the government?
I think the answer to that question is the people that are actually running the show are unelected.
Well, must be. Well, that's obvious. Somebody in the White House.
But somebody that's unelected, because we don't know who they are, but we know we did not elect them to be president. We apparently elected Biden.
Sure.
So and he's definitely not running the show. He can't even run his own show. Can't even hold a coherent thought. And so if he can't do that, then somebody else is telling him is pulling his strings, and the string pullers are no doubt unelected.
Well, without a doubt, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. But it's kind of crazy what's going on, and what is even more crazy, this man is still planning to run for re-election in 2024. Yeah. But this to me is unbelievable. How is this man going to even campaign? The man, like you said, the man could barely keep a coherent thought.
Well, then at the end of the election, and if he wins, then perhaps your cynicism gauge will be reading as full as mine is now after this show. It's back up there. I mean, it started off where it kind of went down a little bit, but now it's. I just got a fill at the local Costco gas station using my Costco card. Now my tank is full again of cynicism. Thanks to you guys.
Well, I guess the cynicism's I guess a little bit easier to come by than gas, because gas is really popping up. over $5 a gallon here in California again. In the non-driving season. So this is kind of crazy stuff. This is a time when gas is actually supposed to start getting cheaper.
Right, exactly.
And my cat is getting more cynical as well, if you've heard.
Well, though, the one thing about this, though, too, I think that just it really exemplifies the whole thing, is the media's lack of curiosity and all these things regarding Biden. I mean, this is the definition of the emperor's new clothes, right? I mean, here's this guy who clearly is not even in control of his own press conference. It's his handlers who are in control of it. And the media, this isn't even a scandal that the most powerful person in office, in the world, I guess, in government office, is sitting there, and he's being essentially told that his press conference is over by his staff, which is, this is like, clearly the emperor's new clothes. And I wanted to point out that there's some people who sort of got this right a while ago. And James, maybe I pulled this up at the last minute, but this is Elon Musk calling out Joe Biden back in 2022. He said Elon Musk is a damp sock puppet, and I mean, clearly he's somebody's puppet at this point. But this was Elon Musk essentially calling him out, over a year ago, and completely getting it right. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyways, you guys have any final thoughts on this?
Well, we don't have a president of the United States. We have a puppet being run by some puppeteers, and we are just watching this all play out. It's just kind of scary when you think about it, because we don't know who it is we are dealing with in the background of the face of Joe Biden, because he have a face but no brain, and there's somebody with a brain and a face in the background, and we don't know who that is.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Well, the kitty is is voicing my opinion right now. Thanks, Kitty. Yeah, I'm trying to.
Be interesting to see what Kitty thinks of Hunter Biden, too. Apparently not even as smart as a dog.
Kitty has a monologue that is very short, and it's all the same. So I'm sure it would be a similar thing.
Well, I guess with all that being said, I guess we're at the you've blown another hour with us. So thanks for joining us on this one, and we plan to have more interviews with people fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. If you want to contact us with ideas for somebody, you can contact us at knuckleheadsofliberty.com, and you can find our stuff on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble under Knuckleheads of Liberty. And you've heard us talk to a lot of people with a lot of ideas on what they're doing in their areas. So before the next show, think about what you could be doing in your neighborhood or your community as well to promote liberty, because we need you now more than ever. So thanks for listening, and until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.